Okay. So you all met me this morning. I'm Yvonne. I'm one of the lawyers here, and I'm here to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is a friend of mine, Jacinda Adams. Jacinda is speaking on the next generation of, it says residential school survivors, but you mean
60 scoop
60
survivors.
scoop survivors. Thank you. Jacinda Adams is a counselor and advocate. Born in Toronto, Jacinda is a 60 scoop descendant. She identifies as Inuk and is from Nunatsiavut, and we'd like to thank her for being here today.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Oh, you brought the tobacco.
I did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Jacinda will be speaking about her experiences without the use of slides, so there you can just speak to Jacinda. Jacinda, we do need you to speak into the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? So I'm here to talk about, I'm going to go a bit into my life, and then I'll just kind of work my way from there. I'm a bit nervous, sorry. So my mother was a 60 scoop survivor, right? And she was a sibling of 7, right? Half of her siblings went to residential schools, and the other half were part of the 60 scoop. My mother was 2 when they took her. She ran away when she was 15 to Toronto, and grew up on the streets of Toronto. My mom didn't know how to be a mom. She tried her best, but she suffered so much abuse, right? Sorry, I'm getting nervous. I'll start again. So when she ran away to Toronto and she had me and my sisters, it was really hard kind of growing up, right? She didn't know how to kind of, be affectionate, be a mentor, and her going through so much abuse, she didn't want to kind of impact that onto us. She didn't pick the greatest relationships, and she picked one that kind of really impacted my life. My stepfather sexually abused me when I was younger, and it was like a cycle. It was like her parents and her parents and her parents. And growing up, our life was a mess. I went to 13 elementary schools. I went to 9 different high schools. Every time that he would beat the stuff up or break our house apart, we'd pack up and we would just move. And we'd move and we'd move. I honestly, I don't even remember a single teacher's name. I didn't make any friends. It was different. It was just me, my sister, my mom, and him, right? When she finally decided to leave him, we moved back to Nunatsiavut, and that's when I started learning my culture and kind of putting my life back together. Through high school was a hot mess. Like it was, I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know where to kind of go. And as I grew up, I just kept asking, what happened? What went wrong? So what I did is I went to school. I'm like, there has to be a reason why this keeps happening from generation to generation. And I went and I took the Assaulted Women's and Children's Counselor and Advocate program, and I learned youth development, and I learned counseling, and I learned that there's a cycle of abuse that happens, and it's like a learned behavior that just it became the norm, right? It was just, oh, you are dating this type of person, oh, that's normal, right? But it wasn't normal. And when I went to school to learn that, I learned the impacts, and I taught my sisters, and me and my mother both learned together exactly what it was that we went through. And now that I have 3 kids of my own, I teach them exactly how the behaviors need to be broken, how to identify exactly what is going on, and how things are not okay like that. And it's it's like, I don't exactly know how to explain it, but my cousins and my sister, right, they are still continuing this cycle of abuse because growing up with it, they think that it's normal. They think that this is the way to be. They think that this is how things are supposed to be. And it wasn't until I went to school to actually learn what is actually going on to actually figure out how to actually change things. And since that has happened, I've now reached out to cousins. I now talk to families. I now teach other people, right, in my communities and stuff, that sexual abuse and things like this, you can learn about it. You can see the red flags. You know, you can have positive relationships and positive relationships with your family, because it doesn't just impact just what has happened there. It impacts the rest of your life. It impacts how you see people. It impacts how you talk in front of a group of people. It impacts, you know, how you look at yourself. It impacts all different ways. But until I actually went to school to actually learn what to look for, I never even knew what was actually happening. I'm kind of rushed through my story, but does anybody have any questions? No? Yeah, go ahead.
We're just going to grab the microphone.
Sorry. No, here?
It's easy to tell a man to show.
I could use a joke. I'm kind of nervous up here.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Thanks.
Thank you. Loved your story. Thank you very much. What drew you to that course?
So when I applied for 2 or 3 other courses that were in the social worker kind of field, and I kind of just winged it. I'm like, whichever one answers. And that one, Assaulted Women's and Children's Counselor and Advocate program, is a special kind of program. It's like you need to be able to break barriers. It's like a diverse, very diverse program. It teaches you racism. It teaches you LGBTQ. It teaches you all different aspects of different sexual abuse and how to overcome that. It was a calling, and I answered it.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So this is coming from the perspective of someone who doesn't have kids, but has lived experience with different experiences. How do you not let the trauma get in the way of having your own family? And if it does, what do you think can be done to ensure that your kids are getting the support that they need, even if things do happen? I've heard that even if you try to be the best parent that you can be, you're still gonna mess it up at times. So
Guaranteed.
it doesn't matter how many books you read. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you plan to talk about these experiences as your kids get older and can hear different kinds of content? What do you think you're gonna do?
It's all about uncomfortable conversations. Really, it really is, because when my mom went through whatever abuse she did, most of the time she kind of explained it to me when she was kind of drunk, like really. So that's how she got it out, and that's not kind of a conversation that you kind of want to have. So I learned that that's not how to do it. So you have to have uncomfortable conversations really openly with your kids, right? And even sometimes they're like, Mom, I really don't want to talk about this, but you have to have the uncomfortable conversation and be like, okay, this happened, this is what needs to happen, right? How do you feel about it, right? And I answer those difficult questions where I know that a lot of, especially my relatives, they'll be like, oh, we don't talk about that. Let's not talk about that. Let's just kind of shove it underneath the rug type of thing. But unless you have those uncomfortable conversations, nobody's going to learn anything.
Hi, Jacinda.
Hi.
So could you talk a little bit about what sorts of programs or resources or counseling or what sort of things you did, and then also maybe that your mother did, that you felt really helped move you along and move her along in her healing journey?
So when I went and I took this program, my mother moved in, and she's like, well, when I got accepted, she's like, you're going to college, Jacinda. I'm like, really? I got 2 kids. How am I going to go to college? She goes, I'm moving in, and we're going to do this together. And we really did. She helped me with every assignment, every discussion. Like, she'd be like, what kind of notes are these? What'd you learn today? I need to know. So we went through the program together, and we learned together. And I feel like that was really, really helpful. We learned like how to have I really like difficult conversations, because being Indigenous, right, and being a survivor, right, and being a descendant survivor, people always get uncomfortable to ask hard questions. You know, they're like they always try to they don't want to ask the stereotypical question. They feel uncomfortable. And because we were asked those hard questions, we learned a lot. And that was the biggest thing for us. That's what really helped us build and helped us grow and to help us move on. Just leave the microphone with her, because I know that this.
I'm very interested in
Oh, cool.
in how
I got-
how this, because it's good to hear from, you know, the perspective of somebody who's also not only a survivor herself but also the child of a survivor, and I know that you have a close relationship with your mother, so I think it's good to hear that, you know, so could you tell me a little bit more about, did you feel like you had a role in helping your mother in her healing journey?
I did. I really do, because if I didn't go to school, right, and I didn't learn, I wouldn't know what I know now. And I'm pretty sure that I would have just continued that cycle, right? And I don't even think that my mom was even aware of this being a cycle, that this actually impacting the next generation until all the assignments came home, until all the readings came home, all the textbooks came home, and we literally read to each other and learned together that, you know, that it's not just us, right? It's not just, we're not just a single person that this has happened to, that this is actually a thing, that this actually happens over and over. And it happened to her parents, and it happened to her aunts, and it happened to her cousins. And until we actually learned together, we would not even known. So I believe that we helped each other, because I was a survivor of sexual abuse and so was she. And both of us, we learned together how to move forward. You know, now I have a healthy relationship. Today she has a healthy relationship. Now we're in a very good space in our life, right? But it took many, many years of learning and unlearning what we knew before, and relearning things and analyzing this, and talking to elders, and going on sweats, and going to the middle of nowhere just to kind of let things be, you know? And we learned together. Yeah.
Jacinda, can you tell us a little bit about what you do today with the education that you did receive?
So I left the bank because, well, I mean, it was a bank. And now I'm building a counseling session. I'm working on building 60 scoop and residential school support group with my education. But I mean, I graduated in '08, and then the bank got me, and then I was with the bank for like 8 or 9 years, and then it's just like so draining, and I feel like I'm counseling their people, and I'm just like, no, this is not even right. So I left in August, and now I'm working on a counseling group. So I plan on using my education, but I haven't used it in a long time. But I still do. I still have all my colleagues from that classes, they still call me once or twice a week saying, Jacinda, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Because I'm always known as a problem solver type of person, because there has to be a reason for certain things. And if there isn't, then we have to find out why, right? So I feel that now I'm going to start using my education, building this support group going forward.
Does anybody else have a question? No. Okay, I have one.
No.
I have one more question for you. One more, and then we're done. So
I got time.
So you talked about going on sweats and speaking
Yeah.
to elders. So could you talk a little bit about the role community played in your healing journey, and the role you may have played in healing the community as well? Both, please.
So after I left, well, when my mom took me back after, I think it was the last time my stepfather tore our place apart, we went back home, and I ended up staying with my uncle. And my uncle lives on an island with no electricity and no hydro. This is hilarious. And from somebody who grew up in Ontario and then BC and then got put on an island, it was different. Like I couldn't really understand then, but I understand now. To kind of, my mother put me there so that way I could like relearn the land, relearn our culture, relearn everything. And I was getting really defiant, right? I was I was not in a good place. But when I went there, I learned everything, and I learned patience and how to be humble, and nature, and so the community helped me out then. And also, when I left the bank, I went back home again, just to kind of get rooted, and it's I come from a town of 300, 400 people, 350 people. She's been there. 350 people, and everybody knows everybody, right? And it's a lot different than it is out here. It's not. There's one police officer who's also the principal of our school, who's also the SPCA, who's also my uncle. Right? So going back home and connecting, especially after leaving the bank, was really, really important for me. And when I went there, I also realized that they needed me as well too, because I had many difficult conversations with my aunts, with my cousins, and stuff like that, and especially with these lovely ladies when they came to come visit. I they were really, really, really good, but the community was like, we needed you to be here to kind of help us with our conversations. And so I felt like the community has helped me a lot as well as I've helped them. Does that answer? Okay. And also when she came, so these are little tobacco things, okay? And before we went up and talked in front of anybody, we felt we needed we got little pouches of tobacco that I gave out to help you feel grounded. And she came up before I got up here because she knew I was gonna be nervous as ever. Thank you. Not gonna make any other
Apparently,
questions.
I have the last question.
All right.
Is is there a role for Western ideas of counseling amongst the Indigenous community?
No, not exactly, but there needs to be. And I feel like that's something that I'm also working into the counseling group, is that a lot of it is like you listen, you're told type of thing, right? But they also need to hear, right? So it needs to kind of be more of like a Western kind of counseling kind of like situation, but there really isn't. But I'm definitely working on that.
And is that because it's not available, or just because it's not something that's been widely wanted in the communities?
I wish I knew the answer to that one. That
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That I don't know. Any more questions? Nope. Thank you all for having me.
So much.
Nakamik?